Can I welcome you all to the Ilfracombe Morgan Cabinet for the 25th of April 2022. I will remind you that the Cabinet is being live streamed and will be recorded for posterity. Can I also congratulate everybody who's on the call, because this is the last Cabinet of this particular administration, and I'd like to thank you for the work you've done. But I will say something at the end. But this is obviously the last Cabinet of this round. First item on the agenda is any apologies for absence, and looking around I can see that there are none. The next item is the minutes of the last meeting. Can I ask if they can be approved, please? I will formally move them.
I'll formally second.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is to receive declarations of interest, if there are any, and I don't believe anybody has any. Nope. Okay, in that case we'll go to item 4, which is a reference from the Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee of the 14th of April. It's in relation to the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021 and the Standards of Conduct Statutory Guidance. The report went to that particular committee. It was to apprise the committee in respect to the Welsh Government's consultation relating to guidance on duties set out under the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021. Those duties included the promoting and maintaining high standards of conduct, cooperation with the Council Standards Committee, providing advice and training, and making an annual report. Section 62 of those provisions contains provisions where there's a new duty on leaders of political groups to take steps to promote and maintain high standards of conduct for their members. The duty recognised that those in positions of leadership and influence within a principal council should have a responsibility for combating bullying and harassment amongst elected members and council staff and must act as a positive role model. The consultation was launched on the 21st of February and ended on will end on the 16th of May. The report went there with the draft responses, which are before you, and they were answers to certain questions. The 5 questions that are there, and they're covered within the report, so I won't go through them. But paragraph 2.2 of the report detailed the questions within the consultation and suggested responses to the questions by the monitoring officer. Those were considered by the committee. There were some suggestions particularly in relation to the duties of the leaders to make take certain actions, and therefore question on whether or not there should be any guidelines or whatever. But basically what happened at that committee was the suggested responses were noted, and indeed they suggested to us that we should accept them or asked us to accept them for consideration today, so that we would endorse the responses to the consultation and indeed send them on to the Welsh Government in order to do so by the 16th of May. So basically the consultation responses are before you, were before that committee. They accepted them. I think they're fair and reasonable, and they've made some comments in relation to some further guidance required. And I would formally move the recommendations that we accept the draft recommendations and that they are sent to Welsh Government as part of the consultation process.
And I'll formally second.
Okay, has anybody got any comments? I think they're fairly straightforward, really, to be honest. The next item is going to be a little bit more complicated, but I will deal with it as we work our way along. It's again a reference from the Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee of the 14th of April. It's in relation to the unacceptable actions by citizens and social media policies. It's a new policy which has been proposed. The policy relates to unacceptable actions by citizens, and it does recognise that a small minority of interactions become intrusive and difficult to manage on both professional and private profiles. The new policy does replace a previous unreasonable complaints policy, which the Council had operated and has operated for a number of years. I have to say that even though it's been in there for a couple of years, there's only possibly about 5 people in total who impacted this policy is impacted upon. The new policy, even though it has had its remit expanded to include all types of interaction rather than just complaints, It was also anticipated to be applied only very infrequently, as it currently does. Any application to apply the policy would be considered by an independent panel of a minimum of 3 chief officers appointed by the chief executive to ensure an objective review of that application. That is currently what happens at the moment. Also, those citizens to whom the policy may be applied would also be given an opportunity to provide information to the panel before a final decision was made. So in summary, the policy provides a fair, consistent and robust process to protect services, colleagues, but citizens as well, from the adverse impacts on the very rare occasion resulting from unacceptable behaviour from a very small number of citizens. The policy also brings out some key points in relation to social media. And again, in relation to that, as with the unacceptable actions by the citizens policy, the social media policy acknowledged that there were very few and very small number of citizens whose actions the council considered to be unacceptable. This was presented to Cabinet. There was a comment from a member saying that he stated that both policies would be extremely beneficial and but it wouldn't stop the public being asked or public being able to ask questions of council, etc. There was a comment from another councillor in relation to the need, and accepted the fact that there was a need for courtesy and respect to be shown to those people in public-facing roles. And the challenges around vexatious complaints. What that councillor did bring up was that he thought there may be risks of this being not used correctly and being used maybe as, to use the expression in the report, to park difficult and persistent but genuine complaints or queries made by residents. Now, I don't think that is absolutely true at all. It's not the case. It hasn't been the case so far, and I see no reason why it would be the case in the future. And indeed, it was emphasised at that meeting that they would only be applied in the most serious circumstances and only after the application has gone through the independent panel, as I mentioned earlier. There was a comment from the chair, and was agreed by the committee, is that they would endorse the policy, which I would honestly do too. But they also suggested that there should be an annual update to their scrutiny committee, Cabinet. And indeed, one of the things that was brought up by the head of policy and business transformation is suggested that that could be combined with the complaints and compliant report, which goes to the governance and audit committee, and I think that's probably a reasonable outcome, to be honest. I think it's a new policy. It's right that it's reviewed, and I think that would be a reasonable thing to do. So I'm really happy with the fact that I think that we should endorse this. One of the things I need to bring to your attention is that we did have a query today from a member of the public, and it issued a couple of things, and perhaps I will deal with all of them. The first one has nothing to do with this particularly. It was a complaint that emails sent to the council over the past few days have not been delivered, and they suggested they hope that will be resolved by the IT section. In fact, that is correct. There were issues of emails being received, and it became live on Friday night, and unfortunately did continue over the weekend. That has been picked up by our IT department this morning, and issues have now been resolved. And I know that there have been calls to the C1V, our contact centre, in relation to that, which is being dealt with. So an apology for that, but that was beyond the council's control. The IT system didn't work. There was another comment that came from the same person, was that the original policy of unreasonable complaints that came into force in November 2009, to the best of their knowledge and belief, was never placed online, so that many citizens were not aware of it, and only became aware of it if they were one of the 5 or less people the policy became applicable to. And there's a suggestion here is that the new policy will be online and easily found using the search facility in appropriate keywords. I don't have a problem with that, to be honest. I think that's fair and reasonable. But in reply to it, I would say this, that the unreasonable complaints policy was focused on complaints processes only and was internally facing. So it was only brought into effect on a very rare occasion. The full policy hasn't been published on the website, so they're absolutely right. However, the new policy relates to a broader range of contacts between the residents, the staff and the councillors. As I say, it's invoked a social media one too, and it is therefore, I think, appropriate that it should be published on the website. So what I will be doing is I will be recommending that the unacceptable action by citizens policy and social media policy be endorsed, but that also that I would add that an additional recommendation that the policy be published on the council's website for anyone to see, should they require to see it. There was a further query in relation to something that they claim was missing from the new policy of unacceptable actions by citizens, and that was explaining the remedies available to citizens who experience, in their opinion, unacceptable actions by officers and members, because unfortunately they claim that does happen. And they also go on to talk about in serious cases where misconduct in public office is alleged, and I have to say is alleged by council officers, it may be an issue, and this person clearly has actions in relation to this, and they claim that the actions have been vetoed from convening meetings of the local authority Standing Order Wales under the Standing Order Wales regulations. I think it's in relation to investigating committee suggestion. It is not something that members of the public can call for. In the person's, what the person has said is in their position that they believe that there should be a section in reverse scenario, so that policies, in other words, we have a policy of unacceptable complaints procedure. Therefore, they're suggesting there should be one in terms of officers, and otherwise they think that there could be a gag on citizens. I don't agree with that at all. And the other point that in relation to calling of an investigations committee, that is clearly not relevant to this particular policy, draft policy, and that under consideration at the moment. But alternatively, the council does have a corporate concerns and complaints policy, which relates to concerns relating to the conduct of members and officers. And indeed, if that is the case, they may be referred to the monitoring officer or the head of legal and democratic services, or further to the directly to the public service ombudsman. So also in relation to officers and members to that effect, both have to comply with the code of conduct. And if any such breaches are or should they occur, are acted upon appropriately. So basically, in relation to this last item, the comments that were made don't apply to the policy that we're considering at the moment. It only applies to those vexatious complainants. If anybody feels that they've been unacceptably dealt with by officers or members, there is an alternative procedure they can go through, which is reasonable and I think acceptable. So I've raised it today because this email came in, as I said this morning. I think I dealt with them correctly and fully, but I do accept the fact that if we have this policy, it would be acceptable, and I think not just acceptable, I think it should be on the council's website for people to consider if they wish to. So I'm simply going to move. Sorry, it's gone through a long process, but because this person's emailed in, this is the last cabinet of this session, I felt I had to raise it here today. So I'm going to move that we accept this and that the policy will be uploaded onto the council's website as appropriate. I don't know if you have any comments to make in relation to that. No. Is that accepted? Is that accepted? And do you accept the comments that are made in relation to the email that came in?
Yeah, if I can just second the recommendations, including the additional ones.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. There's no other comments, then I'll go to the next item 6, which is the minutes of the Cardiff Bay Advisory Committee. And I know that Councillor Burnett is a member of that committee, and I haven't read them. I don't think there's anything much to highlight other than to note the minutes. I don't know if Councillor Burnett wants to come in.
As you said, Leader, I mean, it was actually quite a quick meeting this time, but it was quite interesting because you get to understand all the sort of snippets of operational detail in relation to Cardiff Bay. And one of those, because a lot of people have said, well, you know, what are they doing with all the decking around the Oval Basin, etc. in Cardiff? And it's been quite handy to say, well, actually, this is part of planned maintenance and they're repairing it all. So there's, you know, it's always worth a quick scan of those minutes because of the level of information that you get. But no, I'm very happy to move the recommendation that we note.
Good, thank you. And I'm pleased to see that there was a comment about the barrage fish passes being completed. So good. In that case, I will second that. If nobody else has got any issue, then we'll go to the next item, which is the Shared Regulatory Services Joint Committee minutes. And again, I know that Councillor Williams, Ed Williams, is a member of that, and it does relate to the overview and update of the shared regulatory services. And again, for noting, I think. But Eddie, have you got anything to comment, please?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. It is for noting, as you say, some key points from it is that the service has been working exceptionally well over the last year or so, and particularly also. We've just had a change of head of service, with, so that was something which is of note. The service itself has continued looking after the welfare of the residents, and some big high-profile cases have come through, which are recorded in the minutes of prosecutions, you know, animal dog breeding and the like, taxi licensing and picking up people who are failing to look after their vehicles properly. And the air quality is improving, particularly in the Vale. We've got a good monitoring system. There was another part of the minutes here that mentions there's a proposal gone to the Welsh Government regarding the resources. There's a recognition that in Wales particularly, we're struggling to get qualified officers. And so there's a proposal that the Welsh Government have been made aware of, that we need to put a system in place to train up our own, and also provide some funding as a system in place. There's a system in place in England, and it would be obviously helpful if we had similar in Wales. So they're the main points of the minutes. So that's it for noting. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if anybody's got any other comments. As you said, it's really something in terms of recruitment, but that's something that's been ongoing for quite a while now. Okay, good. In that case, I'll move on. Next item is item 8, which is again minutes of the Joint Consultative Forum. They are there before you. I noticed that really one of the major issues that they dealt with was the hybrid working strategy, which is something which we'll be looking at later. And in fact, there were some queries and comments about it, but clearly at the end, the hybrid working strategy was endorsed, which I'm really pleased to see. I don't know if anybody's got any comments or picked anything else up, but that was the main item, I think, on that agenda. So again, I think they're for noting, and that we will be looking at the hybrid working strategy later tonight. There was also a comment in relation to the Council's people strategy, and again they endorsed the recommendations that went forward, or the report that went forward. And again, that is a report which will be coming to a future cabinet, as far as I understand. So that is basically for noting at this time, but it's good to see that our trade union colleagues have endorsed it. So without any further ado, I think I will move that they be noted. Is that agreed?
Yes, and I'm happy to second that we note them.
Thank you very much. The next item is the Local Authority Governors Advisory Panel, which Councillor Burnett is the chair, and they have recommendations before you. Liz, do you want to come in at this one, please?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, a very straightforward governor's appointment local governors advisory appointment panel. So I think we need to change the typo. I've just spotted that at the moment. But anyway, this is to do with the appointment of governors, which normally takes place twice a year. And there is a table that's appendix within recommendations anyway, the list of appointments that were made. There are some vacancies still there. They will be advertised in the autumn, but fortunately this time of year you've only literally got one term, and then the school holidays before we've got another round of appointments, so the schools aren't left for too long with a vacancy. We've got some really talented candidates with high levels of expertise, so I'm sure that they will be a huge benefit to their schools. And it's worth noting that A. Hodge had said that they were prepared to be appointed to more than one school, so they've been penciled in for 2, but the conversation is going on with officers as to whether or not that's fine. If not, we will go with A. Hodge's preferences, and there will be a vacancy in the other one. So the recommendations that have come through for us is that we agree the appointments made to schools and the vacancies going forward, and as simple as that. So I'm happy to move that we agree those appointments.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to second the recommendations of the panel. Everybody agreed? Yep. Yeah. Good. The next item is the draft multi-location policy. Basically, it's this moves on from a policy for currently what we're doing at the moment, if you want. As at the May 2021, Section 47 of the Local Government Wales Act required all local authorities to make and publish arrangements for the purposes of ensuring that meetings are able to be held by means of any equipment or any other facility to facilitate members who are not in the same place to attend meetings. So in other words, there was a requirement at that time to ensure that there was a facility available to members who couldn't attend the meetings. Under the managing directors, as he was then, and the chief executive's emergency powers, a procedure for remote attendance was agreed, and that has already been agreed. Also under section 46 of the Act, from the 5th of May, and this is the pertinent point really, principal council meetings must make and publish arrangements for the purpose of ensuring meetings are broadcast electronically, so the persons not in attendance, as we are today, and not attendance at a meeting can see and hear proceedings. And section 1.6 of the report refers to that particular area. Also, having regard to the above, so that, and in light of the interim statutory guidance on multi-location meetings, which was issued in August 2021, a draft multi-location policy, which is attached to Appendix A, has been prepared for consideration to comply with the legislation. The policy does provide guidance to elected members of the public and stakeholders on how the council will conduct multi-location meetings. Paragraph 2.17 and 2.18 in the report details the policies and advises which meeting platforms will be used for the broadcasting of meetings going forward from the 5th of May. So under the circumstances, it is something which we are required to do to make sure that it's effective from the 5th of May. I am going to move that the Cabinet note the Council's current remote attendance and meetings procedure within the Council's constitution, and that it has been reviewed in light of the provisions of section 46 and 47 of the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021 and the government and the Welsh Government's interim guidance on multi-location meetings, which was published in August 2021. The two that we consider and recommend, and I would do this, recommend to full council approval of the report and the council is obviously this evening. So the approval of this report and the draft multi-location meetings policy, which is again is attached to the Appendix A, and that the draft multi-location meetings policy be included in the council's constitution. 3, that a review of the policy be undertaken upon receipt of any further statutory guidance from Welsh Government, any accessibility requirements, and the council's public participation obligations. 4, that the use of the urgent decision procedure as set out in section 1414 of the council's constitution be exercised in order that the draft policy and this report can be considered by full council this evening after it's been considered by cabinet. And I will put in an additional recommendation, if I can, that paragraph 6.7 in the draft multi-location policy at Appendix A to the report be amended to read, a participant at a meeting, as defined in paragraph 6.1 above, wishing to speak in Welsh, and the addition is this, or a person wishing to use the Welsh language translation service at a meeting. So the addition of or person wishing to use the Welsh language translation service at a meeting is required to contact Democratic Services at least 72 hours before the meeting. And the reason for that is obviously in order to give time and time for that to take place. If we agree this today, then therefore to comply with all of that, all future agendas going forward will have a sentence advising people to contact the Council's Democratic Services Department at least 72 hours before the meeting if they wish to use the Welsh language facility at that meeting. So I've added that bit in if we can. It is something which we need to have in place by the 5th of May. It is going to the council tonight. So can I ask for your acceptance of those recommendations, please?
And formally second, Leader.
Is that agreed? Yeah. Okay, thank you. The next item is the annual equality monitoring report for 2020 to 2021. Therefore, it's a backlooking report. It's a report of what has actually happened. This report does bring to the attention of the Cabinet our progress so far against the equalities objectives of the Strategic Equality Plan for 2020 to 2024. So it's ongoing. And other actions taken to improve equality for people living living and working in the Vale of Glamorgan. It does summarise the services, what the services have done to collect and analyse quality data, and how people with protective characteristics have used their services. It notes that it notes what they have done to make improvements in the reporting during the period 20 to 21. As I say, the quality report started in 2020 but goes to 2024. It also comments on the progress made with each of the equality objectives and whether we need to continue to focus our efforts. It also refers to appendices, which shows the data collected and analysed by services, and a detailed report on employment information. Following consideration and approval by Cabinet today, the report will be published and referred to Scrutiny Committee for comments to inform how we continue this process. So basically, this is a backward-looking report, if you like. There was a requirement, or there is a requirement, that a statement should be put on our website before the 31st of March. Clearly, we've passed that date, but in order to comply with that, a no status draft report has been published on the website. In the meantime, to meet the requirements to publish the report by the 31st of March 2022. As I say, it is a backward-looking report on what was happened in the last year. As I said, we have a duty to publish it, and we've done that. The annual equality monitoring report is also structured so as to meet the requirements of the Equality Act and specific duties for Wales. So I'm happy that that we've complied with the legislation, and we've compiled the report. This report is for us to look at, and it does actually focus on the council's work associated with the strategic equality plan. And once approved, obviously the annual equality monitoring report will then be translated so there's a bilingual version available, and a full finalised report will be placed on the website. As I said, it's there for the time being. So the recommendation is that the Cabinet approves the annual equality report for 2021 for publication, as described in the body of the report and at Appendix A. And indeed, as I said, there's already a draft one on the website. That the Cabinet refer this report to Scrutiny, Learning and Culture to seek the views of the committee to inform how to continue to address this work, with comments being referred back to Cabinet. So in other words, this is a report of what we've done, how we move forward, but obviously there are things we could change, and this gives the opportunity of reviewing it and, if necessary, making some alterations. They're the recommendations. I don't know if anybody's got any comments to make.
Except to formally second.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, I will move forward to item 12, which is to agree the Cabinet Strategic Work Programme from June 2022 to April 2023. So in other words, for the next Cabinet to take on board, and the Cabinet Quarterly Programme of January to March 2020. Sorry, from January to March 2022, which is what we dealt with, and also it suggests a further programme between April and June 2022. So this is a housekeeping report more than anything else, something we have coming forward to us, and we're asked to agree and approve the programme. So I'm going to simply recommend that the Cabinet approves the annual strategic work programme attached to Appendix A, Appendix 1 for the period June 2022 to April 2023, and published on the Council's website. In other words, what's going to happen in the future with the next Cabinet. That the updates on the Cabinet Quarterly Programme for January to March 22 attached to the Appendix 2 be agreed. And I'm really pleased to see that all those items have been addressed within that appendix. And that third, that the Cabinet Quarterly Programme for April to June attached at Appendix 3, and that they be endorsed. So in other words, it's work for the following Cabinet to address. I don't know if anybody's got any comments to make, but I'm really pleased that Appendix 2 shows that we have complied with and completed all those work that's required, some of which are clearly on the agendas for today. Any comments? No?
No, except to formally second.
Good, thank you very much. Next item is agenda item 13, and this is this disposal of land at Merch Road, Dinas Powys, for community and recreational uses. Again, this is something which has been going on for quite some considerable time, and over the last 3 or 4 years, the former St Cyrus lower site on Merch Road in Dinas Powys has been constructed, and there's new dwellings and affordable homes being constructed there. A key part of the area was zoned for community and recreational uses, and that has been up until now partly used as a temporary site compound for the developer. They've now left the site, and in accordance with the sales contract, the freehold interest of the community and recreational zone is to be transferred back to the council following the completion of the various works, including re-levelling and reseeding of the site by the developers. It is then proposed to dispose of this area of land to Dinas Powys Community Council, as was agreed a very long time ago, by virtue of a long leasehold interest for the purpose of facilitating community and recreational use to the benefit of local people. As I said, this is part of the Uni Master Plan. We're talking about a disposal on a 99-year lease at the peppercorn rent to the Dinas Powys Community Council. The land will permit it to be used by them, and the Community Council will take responsibility for the full repair and maintenance of that particular recreation zone. It is over just about 2 acres of community land, and indeed the council's ecologists have been working closely with the Community Council already, providing guidance regarding the management and protection of this part of the site. So the proposed lease will require them to be responsible for managing, as I've said, and to protect areas of ecology habitat in a manner which complies with the Wildlife and Countryside Act. It has gone to local ward members. There was no response from most, except there was one from one of the councillors who just said thank you. So I think they're fully in agreement, but it is, as I said, something that's been on the cards since the development started. So the recommendations are that authority be granted to the Chief Executive to dispose by virtue of a 99-year lease at a peppercorn rental at less than best consideration pursuant to the General Purposes Wales Consent 2003, the zone of land edged red in Appendix A and B for the community and recreational uses. That, subject to the recommendation 1 being agreed, which I hope it will be, authority is granted to the monitoring officer, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, to prepare, execute and complete all legal documentation required to facilitate the lease to Dinas Powys Community Council. It's been a long time coming, and I'm glad to see that we can work in cooperation with our community council friends. I so move. Ben, you put your hand up. Oh, sorry, Liz had hand up first. Which one did?
I was going to say Liz kept on trying to put her hand up.
I was having problems with my hand as usual. Yeah, no, it was only to say. I mean, I'd be absolutely delighted to second this. And as you mentioned, Leader, it's been years in coming. But I think that apart from the community land, I think it's worth mentioning the environmental land as well. That our ecology team's been working very closely with the developers. So it's not just about meeting our environmental requirements. It's actually about enhancing it from an environmental perspective, and I look forward to seeing what the outcomes are, because I know that they've been working very, very closely in terms of ensuring that habitats are not only protected but enhanced.
Good. Okay. Ben, did you want to come in?
I'm just going to say it's great to see the full circle after the development's taken place. This was one of the first planning permissions we dealt with as a committee at the beginning of in 2017. So it's nice to see this coming back to be used for the community. And I'd note, obviously, one of the ward councillors is in attendance today, and I'm sure that he's paying an interest in what's happening here. So I think there's been a buy-in from everybody in the community council on all sides to this. So it's great to see that's finally taking effect.
Absolutely, because this has been going on for quite a long time. Okay. I've just been told off because apparently nobody seconded the minutes to the meeting. I thought we had.
I heard Liz second, as in the main minutes. Yeah, Liz seconded them.
Well, I thought so too. But anyway,
just for the avoidance of doubt, I definitely second them.
Okay, good. Okay, all right.
Debbie wants to come in though. Yeah.
I'll keep some monitoring officer happy anyway.
Oh, thank you. Yes, shall I just clarify that was posted at 1419, so it's quite some time ago. But it was, in fact, it was the Shared Regulatory Services Joint Committee minutes. That was the one that Eddie spoke to, and I think, Neil, you said at that point that's agreed, but yeah, if that could just be seconded. And I think other than that, the rest of them have been.
I'll second it as I thought I had, so I apologise. By agreeing it, I thought I'd second it, but there you are. Okay, all right, we'll move forward. Aptly, we're talking about the Draft Model Constitution Guide. In other words, what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, and what we didn't do right then. So perhaps we can get it right. This is the report about the Draft Model Constitution Guide. In other words, it isn't change to the Constitution, it is a guide to the Constitution, and this indeed will be going to full council tonight. And if I go back to some of the things we dealt with earlier, was Section 45 of the Local Government Election Wales Act 2021 places a duty on principal councils to publish a guide to the Constitution, and that both the council's Constitution and the guide are published electronically. As you know, we already have the Constitution. It has been made available electronically for some time. However, from the 5th of May, a guide which explains in ordinary language, which would be really helpful sometimes, it explains in ordinary language the Constitution itself, and it must be prepared and published electronically as well. In order to do this work, Brown Jacobson, our firm solicitors, were commissioned by the All Wales Monitoring Officer Group to prepare a draft model constitution and a draft model constitutional guide. At the last meeting of full council on the 7th of March 2022, a number of amendments to the council's constitution relating to provisions in the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021 were required to be in place by the 5th of May were actually agreed. And as referred to in the report, in paragraph 2.3 of the report, having regard to the upcoming local government elections in a week or so time, should any further changes be recommended to local choice functions with the council's within the council's constitution? If you recall, there are some areas within the constitution which are locally agreed, and they would be agreed following discussion with the new administration. The monitoring officer will present further reports for consideration as appropriate, and clearly they will be brought to full council as and when necessary. So, following approval of the draft multi-locations policy considered earlier in this meeting, all amendments, including those agreed on the 7th of March, will be included within a revised constitution, which will be circulated to all members and publicised on the council's website, together with the draft guide, which is what we're talking about here, and if approved by Cabinet and Council, because it has to go to Council, it has to be done no later than the 5th of May. So it's recommended that all references to the use of the terms of executive. This is another issue in terms of there's been a lot of confusion over the past about what's executive and what's cabinet. So this is going to try and put this to bed. I think is that there's a recommendation that all reference for the use of the terms of executive of the council's decision-making body, that the cabinet recommends the council be amended to read cabinet within the constitution. And the two, that the report and the draft model constitution guide attached for Appendix A be endorsed and forwarded to full council for approval right this evening. There is a slight amendment to item 3, and that is that we've missed out the word guide at the end. So it should read, the monitoring officer, head of legal and democratic services, be granted delegated authority in consultation with the leader to address any typographical errors and make any minor amendments to the council's constitution guide. This is what we're talking about, and that that the use of the urgent decision procedure as set out in 1414 of the council's constitution be exercised in order that the draft model constitution guide and the report be considered by full council this evening. That's a bit of a mouthful, but I think it is important that there's plain language and the people can understand things and work their way around the constitution, which is a bit of a devil of a document in itself, as I remember when we set it up originally. So I'm moving those recommendations. Shall we have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Leader.
Good, thank you very much. In that case, we'll go over to the next item, which is item 15, and this is the registration service civil funerals, and this is to propose introducing civil funeral ceremonies, and I will pass this over to fees, etc. I'll pass it over to Councillor Eddie Williams.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, this is a reasonably short report, but it's another facet and another contribution that the Vale Council can make to local residents in the Vale. So, in short, it's the report seeks Cabinet approval to introduce additional services and associated fees and charges within the Council's Registration Services Departments for 2022-23. The proposed fees reflect the additional staff time and expertise necessary to design and deliver a funeral ceremony. In the last 20 years, non-religious funerals have become the norm, and as an established provider of ceremonies and civil celebrants, Vale Registration Service is well placed to provide such a service and enter this market. You'll see from the background that it goes into a little bit more detail than what I've just covered on the summary there. And, you know, the census in particular is recognising that people changing their sort of, declaration of beliefs, and that's a factor that's come to this. Also, there's been a recognition that some of the services, particularly the funeral services, it needs to be local so that people can actually deal with it in the times of grief, have somebody that they can go to. And the council are well placed with that because they've got the expertise. They cover already statutory ceremonies as such, with weddings and other ceremonies as well. So in that particular area, that we know we can do that. And clearly, as a council, then we just recognise that if we're providing an additional service, then we need to provide to get some costs to clarify that. And in the report, it gives an indication of those costs, which are transparent for people to see, and it gives different values depending on the level of help that we give to people that provide service. So I go back to the recommendations on that. It's the Cabinet notes and considers the contents of the report, and then in pursuance of recommendation 1, Cabinet approves the introduction of the additional services and associated fees, the registration service as detailed in this report. I so move.
Yeah, I haven't got a problem with that. Things have changed a lot. So I will formally second, but Liz wants to come in.
Yeah.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify something, because I noted somebody actually made a comment to say about this, that it would be taking work away from local funeral directors, and I just wanted to clarify that that absolutely is not the case, and this is a complementary service to the
funeral directors do the actual transportation. If I'm a bit specific about it, whereas the person, the registrar officer, deals with the actual service itself. Things like the eulogy and dealing with the families and that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's not taken away from. They would still be involved.
Yeah, and that's what I understood. I just wanted the confirmation of that. Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah.
Okay. With that clarification, are we happy to accept the report? Yes. Good. Thank you very much.
Second.
Thank you. just for the record. Item 16 are items that I have urgent. I don't have any urgent items. Les, do you want to come in? No. Okay. I don't have any urgent items, but I do want to make a comment, because this is the last cabinet of this particular administration. It is the last cabinet that I will be dealing with. I'm not standing for re-election, as you know. So this is definitely the last one that I will be doing. And I would just like to put on record my sincere thanks to all the cabinet members for the amount of work that they've carried out, for giving me the opportunity yet again becoming leader of the council. What we didn't expect is a pandemic when we took it on. And one of the things that has obviously changed in terms of those is the fact that we are now doing this remotely, and that things have changed no end, hence the reason some of the reports we've had today. But I seriously do thank all of the members of Cabinet for the amount of work that they put in, the dedication. But I'm not going to go away without also thanking our officers, because let's be fair, we make some of the decisions, but it's the officers who take the brunt, the officers who take that on board, the officers who carry out those policies. I particularly like to thank the Democratic Services officers who put our agenda together, and also the SLT, who are always around to catch us out when we do things wrong, as they have done today. But I thank them for the amount of work that they've put on. It's a phenomenal job. Being a cabinet member is a full-time position, whether you like it or not. Being a leader is worse, I have to say, particularly during the pandemic. And I have to thank Rob for the amount of work that he's put in personally, because I think that we spent more time together than we have with our wives. But if you think about it, virtually, of course. And I'd just like to say thank you for all the work you've done. Thank you for everything that anybody and everybody, all the officers have carried out. Not the SLT, but all members of staff. Because again, without them carrying out the work, we couldn't do what we're doing, and we couldn't continue to be the best authority in Wales. So I will say no more than that, but thank you very much for the service that you provided to this council. And I should say the same thing for Peter too, because I know that Peter's not standing again. So I wish him the best too. But I wish you all the very best, seriously, all the very best in the forthcoming elections. For the ones of you who are standing, Peter and I will stand by and sit on the sidelines and just watch in amazement as you carry on. So thank you. Ben, you want to come in? Sorry.
Yeah, Leader, thank you. I just wanted to associate myself with all of the comments you made regarding thanking the officers and everyone who's been working so hard throughout the pandemic, and casting your mind back to what I saw as sort of unprecedented actions that led to where we are now, and it seems quite minor and petty in consideration of the pandemic that we've had to work through. But I'm proud that as a coalition coming together for the benefit of running the Vale in a sensible way, I'm really happy that we've been able to do that. And for any naysayers, that's been done in a stable environment for 3 years, I think it's testament to political maturity. It's testament to the officers providing the support needed to help us through the pandemic issues we've had. And I think there's been an openness that I've liked with these new online meetings that's allowed us to explain more what's going on. And I've welcomed the comments and conversations we've had with the community since we all came together. So thank you from us for, I remember the conversations we had just prior to the administration coming together, and maybe me and Liz pulling you into this vortex that was the council once again to be the leader. But no, I'm really pleased with everything we've been able to achieve, and just thank you from, if I'm speaking on behalf of Cabinet, with lots of people got their hands up, thank you for everything you've done to help steer us through this time. Thanks.
Thank you for the kind words. Liz, I think Liz first, then Margaret, and I think then Peter.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm having problems with my hand today. Yeah, it's difficult. So it's been a weekend of those sorts of memories. 10 months in, and the pandemic struck. And we talk about 24/7 jobs, but in reality, it really was 24/7, and none more so for Neil. No one else could have led us through the pandemic. No one else could have provided the maturity, the steadfastness, and the total and absolute commitment to the people of the Vale. 33 years, probably 33 and may commit 34 probably before long, of absolute commitment. And in the honour, I have worn my token woman badge because
I've worn my tie.
Yeah, no, because actually in reality, it's because of a lot because of Neil that I don't get to wear it very often, because he's been a steadfast supporter of the equality agenda, and through that, through the group that through the cabinet now and through the group that we've come through, there has been equality right the way through for many years. There will be a huge hole. I don't know how it will be filled, but that will be wait to see. I hope to see Peter around and about on e-bikes. I might even come and join in. But as I said, from me, Neil, it just has to be just huge thanks. Just a huge thank you.
Thank you. Right, don't want to say, Margaret.
Thank you. Like everybody else, I would like to thank you all, first of all, because computers and I don't go together. And I'd like to thank you all for your support and Democratic Services, because without your support, me and this computer might have been someone else. Well, it might have been, shall we say. But I would like to thank you all for that. And I'd like Peter to know that we will be thinking of you, Peter, and I wish you well for the future. But most of all, Neil, I don't know what this council would have done without you for 33 years. Let's be truthful. You always put the Vale of Glamorgan first. I mean, you and I have had our ups and downs, but you were always putting the Vale first. And you have dedicated your political life to the Vale. And you've run this last couple of years in something we never knew that was coming, and you've seen us all through it. And it's been hard work, and you survived. And I thank you for that. And I thank everybody else. And I take care. And everybody that's standing, I hope we're back. None of us knows, but I hope we're back. But the ones that's not, I wish you all well, and especially you, Neil, and Anne, and Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. Peter.
I'll be brief. After Neil's many years of public service, I feel really almost an intruder. I've done far fewer, and my reasons for standing down are more personal. So I'm bowing out quite early. What I would like to say to the officers present is that my portfolio only really overlaps with some of them, and I've had far more dealings with some than I have with others. But if I have appeared to have achieved anything over my time as cabinet member, it has been entirely thanks to their support and help, for which I thank them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I agree. I totally agree. Catherine.
Thank you, Neil. I'm going to be really brief, and you all know why that is. Neil, you've been amazing. Thank you for everything you've done. It's been an honour and a privilege to be on the cabinet. I've really enjoyed this process. I'm grateful to be able to sit here and be sharing this with you. So thank you all very much. The officers, you all know who you are. You know how much I appreciate what you've done for us and for all the residents of the Vale. So thank you.
Good, thank you, Catherine. Eddie.
Neil, yeah, full respect for you. I mean, what struck me was that when I first became a cabinet member was that I'd read a report and I thought, oh, that's good. Yeah, and the officers would think it was good. But you come along and throw your spanner in. And not only would you do that weeks before the meeting, we would have it right up to the date. And even today, you know, this meeting's 420 odd pages. I've no doubt that you can answer a question on any of them. And then that's the knowledge and expertise you brought as council and put us in this position. So it's thanks for that. And thanks for the trust that you've given us all and guided us on how to work through this system, because if you'd have asked me 5 years ago, I would not have dreamed that I would be in this position, even speaking as a cabinet in front of council. And also, it's down to, as you say, to the officers. Without a doubt, we've got some good officers, and you know, it's cheeky of me to make a comment on them because they've been around the block quite a bit as well. But one thing I am anticipating, I better bring a couple of cups of cocoa tonight, because you're going to go through all this again with all the other councillors. It's a nice meeting, so make sure you get your tea cozy ready. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I thank you all for the very kind words. I decided 5 years ago this was going to be my last session. I didn't expect to be where I am today. But I'm truly grateful to you for putting me or giving your confidence in me, and you and the coalition, because the coalition partners have really worked together. They show that the dedication of those who were elected, who care about the Vale Glamorgan, and really that's all that matters, because it doesn't matter who you are, what you are. You were there to serve the people of the Vale Glamorgan. It's as simple as that, really. So anyway, I can say no more now, because we've got to come back and do this again at 6 o'clock. So I will thank you, and as I said, thank everybody concerned, and thank you for your kind words. And you know, I too am standing down for other reasons, apart from the fact that I've done 33 years. I've got other things to do in my life, and I've got care and responsibility. So that's the main function, and I think my family put up with me doing this for so long. Time to give it up. So thank you for the opportunity, and once again, I'll see you at 6 o'clock. Cheers. Thanks very much. Can you possibly, guys, turn the streaming off, please, and then we will be able to clear this meeting.